Shalom from Israel, I'm Ariel Ben Abraham. This week we read Parshat Tisa. It is about counting. It's like a census. So this is very interesting because our sages in the Talmud say that when one counts something, it's because this person loves, cares for what he or she is counting. It's interesting because this psalm, one of the psalms, Psalms number 90, attributed to Moses, King David tells us that he's talking about asking God. It's like a prayer, among other things. He asked God to teach us to count our days so we may acquire a wise heart. It's like by counting our days, meaning the things that we do every day, not just counting the days, we may learn to acquire a wise heart. So in practical terms, the idea of counting in the context of the psalm that we're talking about is about paying attention. So in the same way that somebody counts something because he or she cares for what he or she accounts for, is because the caring, the loving for what we count is the attention we pay to that we count. So coming back to the psalm, because it's pretty interesting, it's like teach us to count our days. It's like teach us to pay attention. So in other words, we learn, we acquire knowledge. We acquire a wise heart if we pay attention to what we do. Well, this is essential. This is very, very fundamental. As we have said many times in the blog, God's love, the way we acquire knowledge is truly through experience. We acquire knowledge. So humans, we are empirical. We learn by experience. It's like by paying attention, we learn. So it's paying attention in terms of paying attention to what we live, what we experience every moment. We learn. So the paying attention in this case is living and learning from, through, by, and for the experience. It may be anything. But the point is that we should be learning about everything. So this is how we count our moments. So it's like if we really appreciate our lives, we should pay attention to what happens in our lives, to what happens to us. So this little preamble of quoting the Psalm number 90, which, as we said before, is about counting our days. In the context of the portion of this week, the beginning of the portion of this week, it's like just count the heads of the children of Israel. So it's like, it's not just the numbers. It's not just about numbers as we have said before. It's about caring for each other. So this is pretty interesting. count the heads of the children of Israel. He could have said, count the people. It's good enough. How many they are. But literally, what the Torah is telling us is count the heads. Not just count, raise the heads of the people. So meaning in this case, raising like counting. That's how sages translate this. So Tisa is to elevate. So when you elevate the heads of the children of Israel, so in this, if we start working on the semantics of raising the heads, not just counting the heads. In a sense, as we said, the idea is to count. But we start understanding Tisa, raise your head, the heads. And we understand that the head is the head. It's the top of this, not just the top of the body. It's like the sense of direction that we give our lives. It's like you have a good head, you have a bad head. It's like whatever you have in your head, in your mind, in your thoughts, in your feelings. Whatever you have in your mind. Count. So let's count what we have in our heads. Let's count our heads. So let's take it in a deeper meaning, not just counting heads. Let's count what is raised in every head. What do we really store in our heads? We should count. It's like, as we said before, it's about caring. It's about like taking the time to count who we are. Not just what we have. Usually that's what we count. How many things I have, how many pieces of clothes I have, how many pairs of shoes I have, etc. But how about counting who we are? Is that measurable? And tell the difference between who we are and what we have. So let's reflect on counting. Let's count not just our heads, but also what we have in our heads in order to acquire a good heart. A wise heart in this case. Is to learn from who we are and what we have, either we like it or not. But again, the idea is not to inflict judgment in the process. It's like we're judging ourselves based on what we have and what we are not, or whatever, in comparison to so and so. But really, as a process to learn what is with us in terms of who we are and what we have. But again, that takes a lot of, not just love for ourselves, but also, as we were trying to say, courage. Most of us don't want to count who we are and what we have. So then the idea is to do it. Quite simple. Anyway, let's keep continuing here. The translations, again, the order, but you just get the idea by the translation. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, when you take the sum, total, of the children of Israel, according to their number. Then shall they give every man, it's interesting what they translate here. They say a ransom for his soul unto the Lord. When you count them, and there be no plague, so they be no plague among them, then you count them. According to the number. So in other words, once we are counted, everybody will give something. So the idea of this census is to count the people in order to take something from them. So like we have 100,000 people, they have to give something. Now, the whole idea behind this census and the giving that we are going to read in a moment is to build the tabernacle, is to build a connection with God. We have said that the tabernacle, the temple of Jerusalem, represent our connection with God, our permanent connection with God. So we have to build, we have to pay for, so to speak, the building of such connection. So it's interesting because they're asking this contribution from everybody that is counted as a ransom. So it's like we're going to rescue our souls with the Lord, or for the Lord, in front of, before the Lord, or in relation to God. In order to be part of Him. It's like we need to give something away from us, take a part of us that we have, something that we have, in order to rescue our soul. So it's like we're going to save our soul when we give this part to God. Now we're going to find out what part is in a moment. But again, let's don't lose the focus that the reason of this counting and the reason of this contribution is to build our connection, our permanent connection with God. So in order to build that connection, we have to give something from us, because it's about our redemption. We're saving our soul by doing this. Now, if we, again, pay careful attention to the meaning of everything that is said in these words, we're talking about a connection which purpose is to ransom, to rescue our souls, our essence. So the connection with God is the ultimate reason why we're going to save ourselves. That's what this means. Now, of course, save ourselves from what? It doesn't say here. It will say to rescue his soul. From what? From that is not connected with God. I mean, we're talking about that is not connected with God. Is that is not part of our connection with God. So what is not connected? What is not part of that connection? And we have said in the blogs in many ways, many times, that is what we create in our own fantasies and illusions. and we call fantasies and illusions, egos, fantasies and illusions, and something that is not part of our true essence and identity. That which is not part of our connection, permanent connection with God. We have to clear a way of our consciousness of things that are not part of that connection. So in this sense, what keeps us connected, permanently connected with God? Being and doing His ways and attributes. It's basically doing what He asks us to do in the Torah. Anything different from that is not part of that connection. So there are 613 ways to connect to God. And we have to do them all in order to be connected with God. And we have to make ourselves aware that everything different from that is basically the outcome of our own invention, out of a feeling or belief of lack. It's like what we think we don't have and we want to have, in direct proportion of what we don't have in our connection with God. That's what the ego's fantasies and illusions are about. Obviously, that includes the negative trends in consciousness. Everything that is negative, anything that is destructive, everything that is useless. Is not part of that connection with God. So let's be practical about this. If we are goodness, because we come from goodness, the goodness of God, our Creator, then goodness is our common bond with Him. Therefore, we are and we do goodness in order to be permanently connected with God. It's this very simple way to put it. It's very simple. That's our connection with God, goodness. This goodness is the one that is going to rescue. It's going to be the ransom of our souls. So it's quite interesting. Now let's read about what is that we are going to bring in order to build that connection. What are we going to bring after we're counted? So, verse 13 of chapter 30 in the book of Exodus. Parshat Tisa, that's where we are. This shall they give. Every one that passed among them that are counted, numbered, half a shekel. Shekel is the monetary unit of Israel. Back then and now. The currency. So God is asking us half, 50 cents of now. In those terms, the units were not 1 to 100 or 1 to 10. They were divided in a different way. We're not going to talk about that. But it's just half of it. That's what it says. Hesi, half. So let's call it now in our currency 50 cents of a shekel. Half a shekel after the shekel of the sanctuary. So after the shekel of the sanctuary is like the shekel, the entire shekel is for, it's like we're going to take a half in order to have one of the sanctuary. So Sayis asked the question, what is the meaning of giving half in order to have one for the sanctuary? And they came to the conclusion, which is sound in the theological and philosophical context of the Torah, it's basically obvious. The other half is God. So the one for the sanctuary, meaning for the connection that will make us one between us and God, is the half shekel. So we have to give half of us. No, not half of us, half of a shekel, basically, which represent ourselves as a half. So we are halves, actually. We are not one. Yeah, but I'm one, I'm whole, I'm a one person, yes, but we are half in front of God. Our other half is God. So this is a connection. In this context, the idea of building the connection, the tabernacle, is to become one with God. Connection means oneness. Once we're connected, we become one with that thing, whatever, whoever we are connected with. This is what it says. Now, it says something else we're going to read now. You say the shekel is 20 gerahs. That's what I'm saying, that in those times the units were not 100 units of one shekel. Or divided in a total of 40 units. So every shekel was divided in 40 units. So half shekel was 20 units instead of 50 cents. I think that's understood. So 20 gerahs, 20 units, half a shekel for an offering to the Lord, to God. You see this in the original Hebrew says truma, meaning portion. So it's not an offering, it's like, it is an offering, but it's a portion to God, to the Creator. So we are a portion. This half shekel that we are is a portion of a total portion of one, which is when we are connected with God through the tabernacle. So it's things that make us think, that we really, as we have said before, and we will reiterate this chain of thought, this line of thought. We are creatures of God. We belong to Him. However, God is telling us, take something from you so you connect with me. Take yourself, which is a half, and offer yourself, your half. You have half to be connected to the Mishkan. It's like this means that we have to devote, to offer, to portionate, so to speak, ourselves, our life, to whom gave us this life? God. So God is telling us, offer yourself as an offering to me. I created you. Devote yourself to me by being connected to me. So the whole point, as we have said, and we have to reiterate it, repeat it again, the whole idea of us, even if Hasbe Shalom, we don't believe in God, we don't believe that God exists, the whole point of our existence is to know from where we came. We have said that at a certain point in our lives, adolescence or mature lives, or at some point in our lifetime, we pose ourselves the typical existential questions. Who I am, from where I came, and where I'm going. What is the purpose of my life? Translating these existential questions to something concrete is like, I want to know my Creator. I want to know my essence and true identity. Of course, we do that, like we mentioned the example of the adopted people, There's a point in which they grew up, said, I want to know my real biological parents. It's like something's compelling. It's really compelling. Most of them, not everybody, but the average, the high amount, high quantity. Because it's part of human nature. It's part of our consciousness. We want to know from where we came. And what is the purpose? What is behind? What are we made of? Yeah, we come from biological parents. We know that. But there's something deeper, because they also came from biological parents, and grandparents came from biological parents, and so on. Ultimately, we were created, humankind, human life was created by God. We are compelled to know God, to know our Creator, to return to Him. We are destined to do that. Sooner or later. So God here in this portion, in these words, in these verses, is telling us, here I am. Build me a tabernacle. Build a connection with me. Offer you as a half. To me, your other half, says God. And then we are permanently connected. You don't want to miss me. I don't want to miss you. You know who I am. I know who you are. We share it, we're together, and we have a purpose. We're partners. We have an alliance. We have a marriage. We're together. With a purpose. And He tells us what is the purpose in the Torah. And one day, when the final redemption comes and the Messianic consciousness starts settling in our own consciousness, He will tell us what is next. What is the next phase? What is the next stage after all that we have lived in these few thousands of years? Or many thousands of years, depending on how you see it. What is next? But again, we have to understand that there's a purpose as long as we know who created that purpose and who created us. And this purpose is in direct relation with God. So we're not separated, basically. What's separated is we, as we have said before, decided to choose egos, fantasies, and illusion, and live in our own ego trips of controlling, attaching to, obsessed to, addicted to, whatever. But that's not God. That's not part of our connection with God. God is not asking that. God is asking us your true essence and identity. That you bring to me. That I gave you. That I created for. You offer me. And then we work together on this. Don't bring me your ego's fantasies and illusions, your ego trips, your obsessions, your negative tendencies. No, that's not part of our connection. That's not the purpose of life. That is not the purpose of why I created you, says God. The Torah says it. It's for goodness. The idea is to make goodness prevail. And we became fully aware of that purpose when we are connected to Him. That's it. So we have to bring our entire lives, which is a half, to Him. Let's continue here. everyone that passed among them and being numbered, from 20 years old upward, in those times the tradition was that a mature person was from 20 years old. So it was counted from that age. Okay. So, shall give the offering, this terumah, to the Lord. This is a very interesting clause here. This is in the next verse. It said, the rich shall not give more, and the poor shall not give less than the half shekel, when they give the offering to the Lord to make atonement for your souls. Now, before they say rescue, now the Torah is saying atonement. Lekaper, to do kapara, to atone. Again, it's another way to save ourselves, to save our souls. So it's like atonement in some way. It's a way that we atone in order for us to be aware of something. So atonement usually is the painful process that takes us to the realization and the awareness of something. That's what atonement is. So atonement is not suffering for suffering. That's not the point. The point is, you are suffering because of something that you did wrong, or didn't work, or it's not practical, or it's not productive, it's not good, it's not enhancing, it's not uplifting, it's not healing, it's not redeeming. Then in your negative choice with the negative outcome, you learn. So in this case, the negative outcome of our negative choices, which is what make us suffer, the negative things in which we were involved, the result of envy, lust, wrath, greed, coveting, just the emptiness that we feel. Is like we really feel empty inside, and that's make us suffer. That's painful. It is. The sense of lack, the belief of lack is devastating. It is. That's why we are compelled to do anything in order to get what we think we lack. But again, in the suffering, in the pain of experiencing this emptiness that we're talking about, the idea is to learn from that, not just to live it. It's like, oh, I'm suffering and I'm having the problem, I'm suffering my frustration, my depression, my anger, my envy, my coveting, my greed, my lust. Just instead of staying there, it's like, hey, this is not what I want in my life. So that's the atonement. It's like the atonement is like, oh, this negative thing is making me aware of what do I really need? What do I really want? That's the atonement. So in this, this is the context in which we have to understand. It's like when we give, the half shekel, as the offering to the Lord, to make atonement for your soul. It's like in our connection with God. That's the purpose of the shekel, the half shekel. In our connection, in our permanent connection with God, we atone for our souls. Meaning, everything negative is going to be out of the picture because we're going to be fully, totally aware that our place is with God, with God's ways and attributes. It's something concrete. It's like the connection with God is not something abstract. It's not. It's very real. What is real about it? God's ways and attributes. And yes, love's ways and attributes as a material manifestation of God's love, from which his ways and attributes come. So atonement, we must understand atonement in that context. So it's like when we atone ourselves, our bodies, or our emotions, or our thinking, or our lives, or whatever. It's not just for suffering for suffering. So it's not the self-flagellation of other religions or anything like that. No. It is to learn from a negative experience. That's atonement. That's how we atone. Okay, what else does he say here? And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, You shall make me a lavatory of brass, copper, and the base thereof of brass, whereat to wash, and you shall put it between the tent of meeting and the altar, and you shall put water therein. This commandment, this is interesting. First is the counting for everybody. And suddenly, God jumps from asking us to give him half a shekel in order to build the tabernacle, and immediately asks for the building of a lavatory. It's like two different things, but they're back to back. It's interesting. So sages say that everything that is apparently non-related is like the building, giving 50 cents, half a shekel, 20 garot, to build the temple, and then he's telling, and build a lavatory of copper, in which with which you have to wash. And Aharon and his children are going to wash there. The Kohanim, the high priest. The priests are going to wash there. It's interesting that is juxtaposed immediately after the offering to the building of the tabernacle. And it's interesting because from regular people, 20 years and older, in order to bring this contribution, this tax, so to speak, God is telling, and now build the lavatory for the priests. Now, who is the priest? We have said many times. We're going to keep repeating because the Torah is repeating many things, so we have to repeat also. And we have to. The idea is not repetition for repetition. The idea is to learn something that is repeated in different contexts, in different ways, so we understand what is behind. It's not repetition for repetition. So there is a reason why it's reiterated. It's for us to understand it in different levels and dimensions of consciousness. It's just repetition in one level, understanding. No, it's understanding, it's discerning, it's intellect, it's emotions, it's feeling, it's passions, instinct, in every level of consciousness. So, we have said that the high priests represent, as well as the tabernacle, the means to make ourselves aware of our permanent connection with God. So we have a high priest in our consciousness. We do. That's our higher consciousness, which is telling us to do the best. Everything that we see, something that is wrong, something that is negative, something that is humiliating, abusing, oppressing, disrespectful, this higher consciousness tells us, hey, reject that. This is not part of you. This is garbage. That's the high priest. That's our permanent connection with God. When we are permanently connected with God, doing His ways and attributes, there's no space for negative things, as we have said before. Now, the lavatory, made out of brass, copper, literally. You have to wash. Some of our sages ask themselves, there are measures for everything. The measures of the curtains, the measures of the altar, the measures of the ark, the measures of the cherubim, the measures of everything. But it doesn't say what are the measures of the lavatory. Now it's interesting because the lavatory is outside. That would be a reason. It's not really part of it. It's like you have a sink to wash your hands. I mean, yeah, it's part of the building, but it's not part of the building because it's outside. It's like, you say, well, probably that's why not. But we have to go deeper on that. So what is the reason why there's no measures? Maybe there are no measures for something that we have to wash. So God is telling you, just wash yourselves. Says you need more water, make it bigger. If you need little water, make it smaller. So it depends on how much we need to wash out, to clean. So we have to wash before we enter to that connection, to that tabernacle. We have to really wash ourselves, our hands and our feet. What our hands means what we do. What our feet mean, where we go. We don't go with the hands, we go with the feet. We do with the hands. Then we have to wash our negative actions, something that doesn't belong to the connection with God. So we wash that out. And those things that lead us somewhere different to God's ways and attributes, we have to wash them out. We have to wash our feet, our sense of direction. We have to correct that. So she said, we're not perfect, we make mistakes, even the high priest, he's not perfect. He can sin and he sins. So he has to wash. So it's like every level of consciousness that we have in the highest has also the dark side, so to speak. I mean, the tendency to be and do something that is contrary to it. Yes. If we consider ourselves good people, everybody says, I'm good, I'm a good person, I'm a good father, I'm a good friend, in general. I'm a good worker, I'm a good driver, I'm a good cook, whatever. That doesn't mean that we have not the tendency to do bad driving, to cook bad, to make some cooking that they're not good, sometimes. And do something that are opposite to the goodness that we proclaim or claim, to be and to do. So then we have to wash out that wrongdoing, that negative way of doing things that we say that don't belong to us. That we are not that thing. Yeah, we made mistakes, but I'm not my negative actions. You are not your negative actions, so how come you did them? Yeah, but ultimately I'm good, I acted out of silliness. A spirit of folly and silliness came to my mind and to my heart, and I committed the sin, as the Talmud says. Okay. We want to be advocates of people who say that they're good. Okay. But again, the point is to be aware, to make us aware that if we need to wash because we're not clean, even if we are good people, even if we wash every day, twice or whatever, then we have to clean. It's a cleaning process before we enter to this connection. So there is a connection between giving the half we are in order to be connected with God and be one with Him, and leave behind to wash our hands and our feet in a lavatory of copper. We have said before in other commentaries that gold, silver, and copper represent still 3 levels of consciousness, 3 dimensions of consciousness. And that copper is the lowest. So that doesn't, as we have said before, we have a lower consciousness also. It's inside of us in order for us to have free will to choose the goodness, the higher things. And interestingly, the container of the water who is going to clean our copper is made out of copper. Could have been made out of gold. Why not? You just golden yourself, wash yourself in water contained in a vessel of gold so you become gold. Something like that. Like using that kind of imagery and metaphor. No. Or silver, maybe. No. Copper. It's interesting. It's like the copper is reminding us. It's like, this is what you have to wash. To give you water. Copper itself is giving me water. The vessel of copper. It's like, hey, take what what I am, says copper. Take it from me. Wash it away. Just be clean. In order to enter the connection with God. So again, we have basic terms that we have learned today, counting. What is counting? We have said that before. Raising the heads, counting the heads. Then the half we are not complete without God. Another very important thing that we have learned. And that we are the realization, the awareness that in order to have that permanent connection with God, we really have to leave bullshit, excuse my French, behind. Really, out. Clean it away. Clean it out. This is the whole basis of the redemption, the final redemption and the messianic consciousness, when evil is going to be totally removed from the face of earth. That's what our sages, our prophets say. Yes. Then we don't need to wash. We will be clean all the time. There's nothing to wash. Because we will be permanently connected in this material world with God, with our Creator. So let's learn to count, to raise up our heads and count what we have in our head. Not just count the head, it's what is inside also. In every level, what we think, what we feel, what we speak, what we do. What motivates us to do. What instigates us to do and to be. And then realize that we are just halfway, half parts. That we are complete really with God. And then in that realization of completeness, of oneness, which is the tabernacle, we realize that we don't need anything negative to bring with us in order to realize that connection. We really don't. Everything would be just good. We will meet the goodness from where we came from. We will know our Creator. We will know our source. We will know our origin. And we will know that from where we came from, who made us, is not part of our negative trends and outcomes of ego's fantasies and illusions. Then we wash them away in order to pursue that oneness with goodness, the goodness of God. Okay, thank you for this opportunity to expand in these deeper meanings of our connection with God, which is the Torah, by the way. Have yourselves a very blessed, abundantly blessed week. Shabbat Shalom. And until next week.